Good morning and welcome to SimWorld today, September 25th. It is a Thursday morning, which means we got Sniper J in the building. Sniper, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing well. Happy to be here, Marsh. How are you doing?
I'm great because we're, 5 days, 4 days away from basketball actually starting and being played, which is fantastic. No longer do we have to hypothesize about what dudes are doing or what they might do or any off court items. We get the SimWorld TV tip off invitational classic invite only showdown duel, with a long name that's got enough names within it to kick off the season on the 29th. We've spent the last couple weeks, Sniper, talking about the top three teams in every single conference. I want to take time and I want to talk the top. Now, I told you top three, but I've decided to expand it to top five teams who are going to be national championship contenders because I have a feeling at the top, I think some of our guys are going to be very, very similarly ranked. I think we're going to have probably a pretty consistent one through maybe four even. So we're doing top five contenders, not in the conferences, but for a national championship. With, I will just make sure that we're putting out there the caveat that, as we saw last year, Hoopsteria can throw, picks to the wind on all of this. So let's start with number one. Who is your number one contender? Because, like I said, I think we're going to have some overlap at the top.
My number one is Villanova. It's
Ooh.
simple. It's simple. Justin Bell and company, really good team, experienced team, a team that had a great season last year. I'm expecting them to do extremely well through non-conference, through conference, and all the way through Hoopsteria. They should be right in the thick of the quad competing for a national championship.
I have them at number two, which I don't. I mean, I think we're splitting hairs here in terms of that, but I mean, all of this revolves and hinges around Justin Bell. I mean, he's a guy that might very well go number one overall this coming season. But this is a really deep team. Four guys returning that scored 10 plus points. Five guys that are returning that played 28 plus minutes. So you're pretty much bringing back essentially your the core of your rotation a year ago on a team that was fantastic during the regular season. I mean, the only thing that Villanova couldn't do was pretty much just beat Georgetown. I mean, they lost to them three times, two of them in conference play, and then one of them in the conference championship game. And then, of course, once they got into Hoopsteria, they couldn't get past Maryland. So that was really the only thing that threw this team off from what was otherwise one of the best seasons a year ago. A team that they hit 25 wins. I think this, I don't think they can get to 30 wins, but that would be an undefeated season. But I think this is a team that's probably going to rack up double-figure wins in the Big East. I think they're going to run away with that. Ultimately, Sniper, I feel like the only concerns for this group is their non-conference schedule.
Yeah, I mean, it's always hard to say how teams gonna do, especially right out the gate with a new season. But for this type of team, yeah, your number two team, my number one. I don't see them having any problem with chemistry or anything like that on the basketball court. Now, the only problem I can see is them. And it shouldn't be a problem, but going game speed against real competition can sometimes be tough early in the season. And if they can handle that and get over that little hump right off the bat, I don't see any problems in non-conference.
So their non-conference schedule ends on December 8th. This is the group of these are the opponents that they're going to have to face. Their first
Mhm.
game is on October 7th. I'm not going to go home or away, just in general.
Right.
Colorado, Kentucky, Penn State, Utah, Tennessee, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, Texas Tech, Baylor, North Carolina, Boise State, Kansas State. Of those teams, I'm looking at troubling potential games. North Carolina, I think that's going to be a competitive one. Texas Tech, I think will be competitive. Oklahoma and Kentucky. So you're looking at four games out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So four of your 12 games are going to be what I think maybe closer to a toss up. I still probably am picking Villanova in those. But that means what? We're looking at likely 8 non-conference wins for this team before they even get to a Big East schedule that, as we talked about when we went through the Big East, not a very deep conference.
Yeah, not a deep conference at all. Again, I expect them to be dominant, and if they're not dominant, we're definitely going to be shaking in our boots from all the way from the head coach all the way down to the manager on this team. I don't have much to say, Marsh, on this. They have to be in the top 4 or 5, as you say. I mean, it's quite simple. If they don't perform, it's a problem.
Who's your number two? I don't want to give my number one because, like I said, there's going to be some overlap. So who do you have at number two?
Kansas.
Kansas
Kansas is
coming
my
in.
number 2. Yes,
Okay,
Kansas
make
is
the
my
case here
number.
for Kansas.
Uh, well, they got a top 5 pick in Nas Hall coming back, who's averaging 17 points. This team caught momentum last year at the right time. Bill Self, legendary coach. Kansas is under the radar. Is under the radar. Now, I have been on the court journal and I have said Arthur Lattimore is going to win Player of the Year. That's the kid from Texas. I stand by that. But this Kansas team is going to win the conference, and they're going to be a team that is tough to beat and some a team to deal with coming towards Hoops area. I think they have all the qualities from guard play, wing play, and big man to compete at the highest level, and they're going to be right there amongst the best of the best.
I've got Kansas as my number three team.
Okay.
I mean, this is why I wanted to expand this to five because I think that this is pretty similar. You've got a very good number one in Nas Hall. I think the biggest question mark about this team is how do you fill in? How does Bill Self find a way to get production after losing um, Jermaine McElmore from a year? No, Jermaine. Well, I always mess up Jermaine McElmore and was it Jermaine McElmore in Kansas, and then who was in Miami? This is going to drive me nuts. I can't believe I can't remember this here. Um, give me 1 second. No, I'm trying. Excuse me, Madison Miles the third. I always mix those two up. So you're losing Madison Miles the third, who great production, 17 points per game, 7.5 boards from a year ago. How do you find that production again? Because this was a team that really relied on their top two guys to be effective, and ultimately that reliance on their top guys is what had them get eliminated in the first round by UConn. And so
Right.
they need to find, unlike a Villanova squad, I don't know what the depth for Kansas is going to look like this season. You're kind of hoping that Jarvis Woodson or Jabbar Wilson make leaps up. Are you going to get something out of one of your four freshmen that are on this program? Carmelo Vega, you probably had high hopes for him a year ago. He didn't really produce at a high level, so they need to find, and I think that's a challenge for this coaching staff, is getting production from somebody that's not named Nas Hall. Because if they can't do that, then I think that's a very big concern for this team in what I think is a pretty top-heavy but competitive top-heavy Big 12.
Yep. Very very top heavy Big 12 Marsh, may I add, and I think they found their production in the paint this year. They got 6'10", 6'11" down there. Two guys that are experienced. They didn't average double figures. They didn't. They average a good amount of rebounds, but I think that is the key to this team. If Nas Paul's going to do his thing, we know that. But if their big man could find a way to score the ball in the paint, make their presence felt, rebound the ball, and defend, this is a really tough team to beat. And I think that's why a lot of people are high on this Kansas team because they're expecting the big men to step up and actually play like big men.
And this is a team that very much plays like an SWBA team, right? I mean, Jabbar Wilson shot 40% on pretty high volume from deep last season. 35 made threes. That was just 8 less than Nas Hall. So good volume there. You've got Jackson Whitlock, the 7-footer. He shot 34% from deep. You know, he didn't really muck it up too much in his 10 minutes on the floor. I would expect maybe him to get a little bit more minutes. Like you're probably starting. I think they should start Jarvis Woodson at the 5, Jabbar Wilson at the 4, just to be able to provide some of that spacing next to Nas Hall. But, you know, big guys, how do they hang up inside? To your point, those two combined for just 10 rebounds. That's not enough out of your two biggest guys that, I mean, 6'10", 6'11", as you mentioned, Jackson Whitlock comes in at 7 foot. All right, so your number one is Villanova. Your number two is Kansas. That's my 2 and 3. Who do you got at number 3?
Number 3 is the SEC Alabama. You can't go
And
wrong
yeah,
with them.
that's my number one.
Right.
I don't think that surprises many. I've been pretty high on who Alabama is, but Alabama at number one. I mean, I'm assuming for you, it starts that conversation starts with Kai Killens.
Uh,
Oh,
No,
it
it
doesn't.
starts with NATO. Like I always been.
Sure. Okay.
It's the coach, and Kai Killens, amazing talent, but you also have an amazing talent in DJ Childs, and you the players are there, the talent is there. What is Nate Oates going to do to get over the hump? And I say this time and time again because I don't think people think that Sniper J means what he says. Because I remember everything I say, and every time I say it, and I'm going to continue to preach the sermon until y'all get it. Nate Oates is the problem and the solution here. If he could be the solution, we're talking about a national championship team. If he's the problem, we're talking about an early exit from Hoopsteria. That's just my opinion.
In you're, I think this is where we divide. You're of the mindset that if Nate Oates doesn't get a national championship, the seat is hot in Alabama.
100%.
I struggle to subscribe to that for a couple reasons. One, as I've said plenty of times, I don't know that we should judge in college basketball failure rate purely on national championship or not. But I also think this in an era of two and through, you've got a really nice freshman class. Like, yeah, you've got some nice pieces coming back, but Leonardo Fields, foreign flex, Kai Killens, and Almighty Soul. In my opinion, that's a fantastic recruiting class for freshmen. And you know you're going to get them for 2 years. You're not going to have to retool this group next season if you're Nate Oates. I think that I can understand it if next season, right? You don't get it done and maybe that starts to grow weary, but I struggle to subscribe to, well, clearly Nate Oates can't get it done because he hasn't won. I mean, he made it to the quad last year. That is a deep push. But not to dilute ourselves into talking about hot seats or not. Do you think the four freshmen on this group is a positive or a negative?
Positive. A positive. And maybe we don't see eye to eye on this, Marsh. Maybe we don't. But in all honesty, what they got 2 years. Nate Oates, we'll give you one. We'll give you one. You didn't have ample opportunity with all these talents before these young men to get the job done. We'll give you this 1 year with these men, and then we're gonna bring in somebody new, somebody fresh that could get into these kids' ears and actually try to reel it back in and become the best of the best. Because Alabama, let's be honest here, history states football,
Yeah.
but last couple of years, Nate Oates has brought it to a tradition where we expect to win. We just can't win at the highest level. So if you can't win at the highest level and you have the talent, what's the problem?
Who is your number four team? And I think that we're going to be aligned here on this one as well.
I don't think so.
Really?
I got Gonzaga.
Gonzaga coming in as your number four. All right. That is definitely out of left field. Make the case for the Zags, who last season went 7-7 in the Mountain West.
Yep. A good team, a traditional type team. Bringing back. I feel like I'm repeating myself, but they're bringing back a lot of depth and a lot of experience. They got a lottery pick, and I think he's going to be unstoppable this year at 6'9", 215. Mr. Luffy. Um, Mark Few is known again, kind of like Nate Oates, always gets to the promised land, never finishes. So maybe this is his year. I don't see nobody stopping them in the Mountain West. I think they're gonna have a tough non-conference, which is gonna toughen them up for Hoopsteria and Hoopsteria only. But as far as the Mountain West, I think they get through that pretty clean. They win the championship there, and they get that high seed, and they have a favorable path to the quad.
Now, why is it? Do you believe that if Mark Few doesn't win a national championship, that he's on the hot seat?
It's a good question, actually.
And I would say, what's the difference between what Mark Few has done, which has pushed this team to being, national championship game, which they lost the thriller to, constantly making it into the second weekend. I don't believe they did last year. As I'm pulling up Hoopsteria, but like it's not a group that's dramatically different from what you're seeing
Right,
out of
right.
Alabama.
Well, so here's the difference. The conference. We talking about SEC $1 billion conference, Mountain West $1 million conference. I'm not trying to play down on the Mountain West, but we got to
Before
call a
that,
spade a spade.
hundred thousand
Nate
dollar conference.
Oates is quite literally in the limelight.
Sure.
Mark Few can go a couple seasons. Oh well, maybe he can't get the talent that Alabama, Arkansas, or a Villanova or Syracuse or UCLA can get. Maybe he can't get, or maybe he can. But I feel like in the Mountain West he can hide, and he has been hiding. Now that you say that, now that we actually talking about it and thinking about it, Mark Few has gotten away with some years that he is absolutely supposed to. Hey, Mark Few, you're supposed to be doing this, and this, and you're supposed to be winning at this type of level because you're the type of coach and you have the type of team to do that. And this is one of those years. I'm interested to see what that athletic department does at Gonzaga if Mark Few doesn't come with
I
a
don't
high
I don't think they're going away from him. I mean, Mark Few is as much of the
legendary.
enterprise of Gonzaga as anything. I don't know that Nate Oates is quite at that same level. So Gonzaga did make it to the Sweet 16 last season. The challenge to that is they played in the first two rounds the worst possible team they could. They beat number 9 Cal and they beat number 16 Virginia, who would upset Virginia Tech. And then they lost to San Diego State. So it's difficult to really point to that run as proof of concept for Gonzaga. I do think Damian Luffy is a great piece. I do think he's a guy that could make his way into the lottery. I think that this is a team that does have a lot of offensive pieces, including Carlos Charlamopoulos and Yvonne Conwell. Like, kind of a sneaky offensive good team, but they have to replace a lot, right? They're guys that played 3+ minutes. And behind that, they got to figure out what this bench is. Do you have who can you trust on this team to provide some that high level scoring? Because the biggest challenge for a lot of these squads is you have the number one. Do you have a reliable number two? It's the biggest question mark about Kansas is who's going to be the number two behind this squad. Who's going to be the number two behind my number 4 team, which is Texas. Who's Arthur Lattimore going to get support from? I think there's certainly there's going to be people that are going to sit here and say, well, Brian is going to be behind Arthur Lattimore. It's obviously Vincent Magic, and I would say it could be Anthony Young, but Vincent Magic, very much more about, in my opinion, more of a facilitator. Anthony Young more of a sharpshooter, but I think that actually lends itself pretty well to Texas. You've got an elite talent in Arthur Lattimore. You've got a team that has a track record from a year ago of being very competitive, and ultimately a team that made really big improvements. And you bring back 5 guys, 5 guys with 20+ minutes. Like that is experience that matters.
Texas is a team. Is a good team. I just don't think they have that championship DNA.
And so does that mean Texas is not your number 5? Let's just get that. You don't have to tell me who the 5 is, but are they not
No,
your number 5?
no.
Okay, they're not your number 5. Interesting. Okay, so you're saying Texas not because of the lack of DNA for this group.
Yeah, I don't think they have the toughness to compete and be a contender. It's one thing to get to the show. We have a 64 team show. A team want to make it that's not contending for a championship. Texas is one of those teams, in my opinion. They may make it up the first weekend, but that second weekend, I could be doing the odds. I may take the under.
May not weekend. So you get the Super 16, but after that, it's a concern.
Yeah,
Okay.
around 32. I'm not sure that they might make it today.
So win one game in Hoops area.
Yes.
Okay, so
Can or lead has that? I'm not sure.
I think it's difficult to be a number 1 guy with an ability. So I said time and time again that I'm looking for that type of development from Arthur Lattimore. He's a great presence inside. He's a great scorer. He shot really well from the free throw line. Tells me you didn't take a lot of opportunities from outside, and I think I'm not saying that as just me. I think that you're looking at scouts at the next level that want to see Arthur Lattimore be more than just a paint presence, because he doesn't have the same type of athletic explosiveness that Damian Luffy has, right? Arthur Lattimore is a little bit more traditional to the basket, and if that's what you're going to be at 6'9", that's actually disadvantageous for you at the next level. So I think for this team to really become that, but I think they have a lot of talent, and I think they can do that. For them to get to that level, I think they really need to see more offensive versatility from Arthur Lattimore. Who is your number 5 team?
I'm going out west, and I think they got a good chance to win the Pac-12. I'm not saying they'll win the Pac-12, but they have a good chance, and it's Arizona.
Okay.
As a contender for a national championship. And here's I don't like Yams.
No,
I don't represent.
you do not like Yams. No part of you like Yams.
I like Yams, but he has a good team around him, and he's a big man to hold down the paint, to score the ball, to rebound and protect the paint. That he feels Hilton to get the job. The second round goal, 25. I think his average was 18. He's gonna be the head of the snake, and Yams is gonna be that physical bruiser, get the trash out and take out the trash, and be the bruiser that they need to win in this area. I'm not saying it's gonna be pretty because they may lose some games. They may lose some ugly games actually, But when it's time to put on and win games, I think this Arizona team can do that.
If Arizona's going to be a national champion, they're going to rely on their defense. And you might not like Yams, but I do think that he's a pretty good interior defender for the Wildcats. I think they're going to do that based off just playing rough, tumble basketball. You got some nice freshmen in Ashton Rollins and Torres. They rely on them. Hilton and Erickson, though, they aren't really like those are the two guys that are actually returning as leading scorers for this team, but they don't present themselves as go-to on-ball scorers, right? I mean, Hilton more so than Erickson, but those guys are more slashers that operate really well when there's a point guard dishing and diamond for them, and they don't really have one of those guys right now on this roster. Now, Torres could become that guy as your more traditional point guard, but I think that lack of organization could hurt this team offensively.
I agree with you. Defense is definitely going to be a
Yep.
catalyst for this team, but it's, we see teams at the Snowman, which is a public school. We see teams out west who we wasn't thinking about, who did play the toughest schedule in the Pac-12, but they made it all the way to the national championship. So I have to look at it. It's almost like a new college football. This team play get in and get a chance to may have a couple of injuries, higher confidence. That's the type of I think I'll have to take care on that. Maybe that's a tough team they season higher. But I'll be observed just that last bit of gas to get past the game.
You mentioned that we're going for other teams. More returning sports. If you can be a sophomore year, 16 years, 4 per game, confidence being able to score for yourself. Also, you've got a coach, on this team, and you see there's I love this team when we start talking about them, 2.5 months ago.
I'll get the kid name left-handed though, but do you think Paint can be that running mate
I do.
with him?
Pooh Lewis. He lost Pooh
That,
Lewis in the backcourt.
like this. Yeah, I mean, when one of them was averaging 20 and Loftus was averaging 15, do you think Loftus could elevate his game up to that 20-point range and Pate come in and be that 14 to 15-point game scorer
I do.
with the production of Graham, Isabel, and Jolly Harper?
I do. I mean, I think Dink Paint brings. He's an athletic two guard, 6'5", so you're not going to have an exceptionally small backcourt. Though even in college basketball, I don't think that's as detrimental as it is at the next level. But I think that Kadarius Loftus is really really good on and off ball, and he's the
Mm-hmm.
very rare breed in college who he understands what his limitations are, or better yet, he understands how to be not the only creator. And I think that's a challenge that some of these number one guys have, like Lace Darius Outlaw, like D'Angelo Jordan, to some extent Justin Bell, guys that are just so accustomed to being on the ball all the time that when you ask them, okay, well, I need you to be off ball, can you do that? They don't do that as well. And I think Kadarius Loftus, as evident by his ability to hit threes last season, because you had Pooh Lewis there. I think that's very attractive for next level scouts, but I think it's also very attractive when you're trying to say, let's win some basketball games, and you're not so singularly reliant on one guy or one combination. You can kind of say, all right, if Loftus doesn't have it, Dink Paint's the type of downhill athlete that can get us into the spots that we need to win basketball games.
You know what?
Coach at Wake Forest. All right, so your top five is, remind me of it, you're starting out with Villanova, you got Kansas, finish it out for me. Alabama. You had Gonzaga.
And
Arizona. And then my top five: Alabama, Kansas. Villanova, Kansas, Texas, and Louisville. All right. Well, Sniper, the next time we talk, we're gonna have a couple basketball games that we can react to. Some of those teams that we just talked about, we'll be able to react to and see where they're at. So glad that we're finally at that point in time, because certainly sitting here and talking hypotheticals is of no interest to me when we can actually talk about actuals, and that is everything going on in college basketball, which starts on the 29th. All right, Sniper, appreciate all you've done. Looking forward to chatting with you next week. Appreciate you all tuning in. We're talking to you tomorrow morning right here on SimWorld TV, the only place you